Hello, welcome to Philosophy Bites, and today we're going to focus on Sikhism. Sorry that the Sikh symbol is smaller than the other two things, but that's the only thing I've got that represents Sikhism. I've deliberately placed the other two objects there as well, and I'll tell you in a minute. Because Sikhism started round about 500 years ago. So out of the 6 world religions, it's the youngest out of Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Sikhism, Hinduism, and did I say Judaism? Yeah. So Sikhism's 500 years old approximately, and the founder of Sikhism is called Guru Nanak. He had a spiritual experience. He went into a river and disappeared for a few days, and then came out of the river, and basically that's where he got the revelation from God about Sikhism. And he said there is neither Hindu nor Muslim. So you've got the Shiva there to represent Hinduism and the prayer mat to represent Islam. Because he noticed that there was lots of kind of fighting going on between Hindus and Muslims, and he wanted to try and focus on what they share is like their belief in God. Both communities had a very strong belief in God and tried to focus on what they share rather than what divides them. Sikhs are very famous for their identity, for having a clear identity compared to, say, for example, Christians. When you walk on the street, you might not know if somebody's a Christian because they don't have anything particularly defining them, unless maybe they're wearing a cross or something like that. But lots of people wear crosses that aren't Christians. But Sikhs, on the other hand, because of one of the gurus in 1699 was worried that Sikhism was going to die out, and he gathered all the followers of Sikhism outside of a tent, and he came out the tent and said, is there one person who would be prepared to die for their Sikh beliefs? And a man came forward and put his hand up, and he said, right, come into the tent. Took him into the tent. There was a short pause. He then came out the tent, and his sword was covered in blood. And he said, would anybody else like to come forward to prove that they are a committed Sikh? You can probably imagine the crowd are getting a bit nervous by this stage, but one man stepped forward, and he went into the tent. The same thing happened. There was a pause, and then he came out the tent with his sword covered in blood. This happened 3 more times, so that 5 men went inside the tent. Eventually, the guru came out of the tent and led the 5 men out the tent, and they were unharmed. What had happened in the tent, who knows? Maybe you can come up with your own idea as to what was actually going on in the tent beforehand. But the 5 men became what's known as the Khalsa, or the Brotherhood of Sikhs. And they were the first truly, really committed Sikhs. And they formed what was called the Khalsa. If you want to join the Khalsa today, you can do. Whether you're a man or a woman, you can join the Khalsa, and it means you are a committed Sikh. The Khalsa wear what is known as the 5 Ks. The 5 Ks of Sikhism. The first of the Ks is called the Kesh, which means you grow your hair long. You do not cut your hair or your beard, because uncut hair is a gift from God. That's what they believe, that uncut hair is a gift from God. So Sikhs then wear the turban, which doesn't have any religious significance itself. It's just a practical thing to basically keep the long hair tied up nicely. So the Kesh is uncut hair. The Kara is a steel bracelet, which is a symbol that God is eternal. The Kanga is a comb that is for the long hair to keep it tidy. The kirpan is a sword or a huge dagger to represent the idea that you're willing to defend your faith, not to attack others, but only to defend your faith. And the last thing is the kasha, which are kind of almost like boxer shorts, like they represent self-control and the willingness to go into battle to help others. So, Sikhs are easily identifiable by the 5Ks, so they're not frightened to say, I'm a Sikh, this is what I believe in. Okay? Sadly, during 9/11, like, there were lots of Sikhs that were attacked after 9/11 with the mistake that they thought that they were Muslims. Sikhism and Islam are completely different. As I say, Sikhism's 500 years old. Islam's a lot older than that. One of my favourite things about Sikhs is they have this thing called the langar. And when I was teaching RE in secondary school, I would do my own langar for the students. The idea of the langar is it's a community meal. You all sit on the floor, you're all equal, and you eat together. You eat a vegetarian meal, and there is a queue of people on a waiting list wanting to pay for the meal. The Sikhs take it in turns to pay for the meal on a Sunday, and as I say, there's a big waiting list. And the idea is not only do you pay for the meal, but you also do like the jobs in the kitchen, like the cleaning and the washing up, so that even if you're a doctor and you've got lots of money, you're paying for the meal, but you still do all the washing up to show that you're not too stuck up your own backside and all kind of posh and think, well, I'm a doctor, so I don't do the washing up. It's to show that everybody's equal. You should have humility and all be the same. And I used to get some Indian sweets from from Butt Savouries around the corner, my favourite shop. It's run by a Muslim guy, and he serves these beautiful Indian sweets. So I got a whole load of them and took them in for the class, and we all sat on the floor and ate, put some music on, and ate the food together. So that sums up just a little short introduction to Sikhism. I'll just finish with one story, which is my favourite story from Sikhism. I'm not sure which guru it was, but there was a battle, huge big battle. I don't know who the Sikhs were fighting at the time, but at the end of the battle, there was all these people lying on the battlefield, still dying. And one Sikh was caught giving water to the dying enemy. So these two guards, Sikh guards, dragged him towards the guru and dragged him in front of the guru and said, "This man has betrayed us. He has been giving water to the enemy." The guru turned to the man and said, "Can you tell me why you did that?" The man replied, "Well, I looked at them and I looked at our side and I couldn't see any difference. I looked into their eyes and I couldn't see any difference between them." The guru said, "Release this man. He is a true Sikh for loving both sides." So that's my favourite story from Sikhism, because it reminds me a little bit of in Christian teachings, the just war theory by St. Thomas Aquinas. One of the rules of a just war is to never forget that your enemies are human beings as well. Never lose sight of the fact that your enemy is a human being, and have compassion for them as well. Even though you're fighting them, have compassion for them. After you've finished the battle, treat them well. I hope you've enjoyed this brief introduction to Sikhism. If so, put a like please, or subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much.